Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. Karl Bryan coming at you. And I'm here today without my boy Road Dog. Schedules were conflicting. So here I am alone. Anywho, the show goes on. So actually what I wanted to do last week, after I finished up the podcast, I was thinking, what are the questions that I didn't drop? Which basically what I did is just, I'm sitting with a prospect, trying to get them over the line. Just some of the things that I would banter back and forth to get them to kind of go a little bit deeper, right? And convince themselves that I am the person to sign up as their business coach, as an example. And no doubt you realize, like, when it's their idea, they'll fight for it. When it's your idea, they'll fight it, right? So that was kind of the concept there. But anyway, so the question that I thought of, that I think you should commit to memory, and potentially you write it down first, put it in your phone, put it in your notes and revisit it. But I was sitting with somebody, one of the things that I would say to them, if you were to hire someone to help and guide your business, in 12 months from now, what would you need to have happened in order for that to feel like a great business decision, right? And guess what? The answer that they give you, the answer that they tell you, exactly tells you what you need to do, what you need to say, what you need to convince them of in order to close the deal, right? Or maybe said a little bit differently, at the end of this call, or at Zoom, and again face-to-face, but at the end of this call, what do you need to see, hear, feel to move forward with a mentor with confidence, right? No doubt you could see how you say that they're going to give you an answer. It needs to be positioned properly. If that was just spat out without the right setup, I dare say that you wouldn't get the right response. But you set it up with a little bit of authority, bingo, bango, bongo. I think you got yourself a framework to be able to work with to say, okay, I could solve that problem. Notwithstanding, what they might do is give you an answer, something along the lines of, I need my Facebook ad campaign to work, and you don't have those skills or the person in your network to do so, then maybe that's not the right client for you. And guess what? That's okay. You're not for everybody, right? But anyway, so there you go. I hope that helps. The other thing, I got Road Dog to send me a few questions here. Actually, before I go to the questions, you know what I want to do? I do an Ask the Expert call a couple times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays with our folks. And Gary Mansky, who's a successful business coach, but also helps us internally and guides and advises the coaches that work with us. One of the things he said, he got a client. Basically, I gave the advice of, and I've given this before, so you might recognize it, but in his opinion, it was like everything. I'm sitting with an entrepreneur, I'm sitting with a business owner, I'm thinking that I want to be able to convince them to buy my business coaching. With 100% certainty, I would drop 3 bombs. Okay. What do I mean by bombs? It's something, higher level thought, something that gets them thinking, something to the effect of, wow, I've never heard it explained like that before, right? Rather than yes, which of course you want yeses, and a yes is far better than a no in a sales dynamic. But what I really want them to say, either, out loud or to themselves, wow, I've never heard it explained like that before. So that would be an example. Like, that's what I mean when I say 3 bombs. And by the way, Gary did this, and guess what? Literally, I believe, it's on a recording, but the first person that he sat with, bingo, bango, bongo, took him up on his offer. So I thought a good idea might be to give you an idea. So you say, okay, well, look, Karl, sign me up. Like, I want to use those 3 bombs too. Right? But what would they be? Well, let me give you a few to think about. One of the things that I would say is profit is a theory, cash is a fact. And by the way, no truer statement than that in business. Um, for the non-accountants in the room, you might be saying, "What do you mean?" And I've been saying that for years, and I've heard that response many a times, like, "What the hell do you mean?" Just think like an accounts receivable problem, right? They're making the sales, they're doing the work, they're fulfilling, looks profitable on the P&L, right? Because you made the sales and should be getting the revenues, but they don't collect the cash, right? So like an accounts receivable problem as an example. Well, they look profitable, but they're not. Again, that's profit is a theory, cash is a fact, right? Or got a bad debt, or a client goes bankrupt and doesn't pay, right? That these things that does not show up on the P&L. It will show up anyway. Just cut a long story short. Cash is a theory. Sorry, profit is a theory, cash is a fact. I'd be saying that, and I'd be explaining it, right? Yes is a responsibility. No is a decision. Often, I've said that. People are like, oh wow, okay, that's got some power behind it. A real mentor can tell you what not to do, right? Any dum-dum could look at your to-do list, my to-do list that is already too long and not going to get completed, and add 5 things to it, right? What can a real mentor do? They take your list of 10 things and wheel it down to 3, right? And as you're doing that, what you want to be thinking about is, what's the one thing that if you do it, knocks over multiple of the other things on the to-do list, right? Like, what's that one? There's a very popular book called The One Thing, Gary Keller. Famous book, very good. That's conceptually the thought. But at the end of the day, a real mentor can tell you what not to do. I think that's got power. You can get lucky, and what do I always say? You can get lucky and make it. You can't get lucky and keep it. Again, people tend to resonate with that. Or you motivate an idiot and they do stupid things quicker. Or a little bit harsh, but at the end of the day, I think there's category of people that hear that and they go, wow, that's so true, right? As an example, like Apple, if we call that, debatably, but one of the most successful companies cash wise of all time. What do? They sell very few products and services, and they only have premium level pricing. Well, go to the landscaper, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and what are you going to find? They're adding products, they're adding services, and they're charging lower rates so they can beat the competition, right? You motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker. They're literally running in the wrong direction enthusiastically, by way of they're going in the exact opposite direction of what's debatably the most successful cash business of all time, right? Or like, let's say if you have 20% net margins, reducing expenses by 10% is a 40% profit increase, right? Or if you got 5% net margins, depending on, who you're talking to and the frame. But either way, what I would do is I would nail one down, right? But if they have 5% net margins and you decrease expenses by 10%, what happens? Bingo, bango, bongo, you triple the profit. And by the way, guess what? All backed up by my simulator, my profit acceleration software, and the operating system that I can install with all of the business owners that I work with, right? Like, that's what you're saying in the networking group over the phone, when you're speaking to a referral, a banker, the business broker, the accountant, the graphic designer, the ad salespeople, the gals at the chamber, the guy at the chamber, the folks at BNI, etc. Or needing nothing attracts everything. And again, I would back that up. Or maybe you drop the Peter. Is it the Peter? Yeah, the Peter principle, I think it's called. Peter principle. To those with everything, more is given, and those with nothing, everything is taken away. Right? Not an opinion, not a thought. You tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. But that's a universal law, right? Not an opinion. Or what's another example? Most business owners are trying to get big. Why? So that they can get rich. What's the result? The story ends very differently than that, right? So business owners are trying to get big so they can get rich, and that's not the story. That's not how the story tends to end, right? Like the goal of getting to $1 million is a stupid goal, because why? Because you could literally accomplish your goal and lose money, or you could accomplish your goal and make very little profit, like 75 grand as an example, right? Why? tight margins. And what are they not doing? They're not focusing on their margins. They're focusing on getting big. They're focusing on increasing revenues. And you tell me if that's a good idea. But again, they're trying to get big so they can get rich. What they really do is they create a vulnerable company. Think like one rogue staff member, a bad debt can literally wipe them out. Like businesses fail for one reason and one reason only, right? They don't run out of ideas. They don't run out of opportunities. They run out of cash. The exact, you ever played Monopoly? There's one reason and one reason only why you end up going to bed earlier than the others. And that is because you run out of cash. There's no other way to get knocked out of Monopoly. Monopoly is ultimately, it's a game business, right? Maybe how do I want to say this? Like the best offer. How would you like to have a bulletproof offer? I'm going to hazard a guess that you would say yes, please, and raise your hand if we're in a room together. What you do, the best offer you can make is painting a picture of a future they want to be involved in, that they want to join you in, right? An example, I've said many a time, like loneliness is an epidemic, right? And again, there's people much, much smarter than I talking about this and trying to solve this problem. But the bottom line is loneliness is an epidemic. If you could solve that and you were working to solve that, tell me, is that, a future that you would like to join, that they would like to join, that they would like to come with you on? Or maybe again, I'm a business coach. Ultimately, 90% of businesses fail. Yeah, it's not Wall Street, that's Main Street. 90% ultimately fall over. If solving that in XYZ city, as in your city, sounds like a good idea. Look, do you want to join me? Right. So again, just painting a picture of a future that they'd like to join hands in. I think that's got huge power. Or maybe a really good one. I've talked about this for years and years and could not be, um, you know, how do I want to say it? Like more powerful. Exiting a business for 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, 8 figures sounds sexy, right? Until you learn that 75% of the people that exit end up where? They end up regretting it, right? And by the way, don't believe what I'm saying. Have a look at the stats out there. So the higher level frame is what? Well, build a business you could sell tomorrow, but don't want to. Right. And I go, how? Well, guess what? Install my profitable operating system, right? With precision and my guidance, right? Or you paint a picture of imagine earning passive income from your business that you don't sell and that you're not involved in day to day. Does that sound like a sexy future and one that you'd like to be a part of? Well, bingo, bango, bongo. You might just have somebody saying, wow, like I've never thought of it like that before. Like I've never met a founder or a business owner that failed because they lacked ambition, lacked ideas, lacked opportunity, right? They lack a profitable operating system that can be profitably installed. And you could follow that up with precision, right? So yeah, I've never, like, I don't know. And again, you look when profit goes, passion erodes is another way of saying it, right? So again, you introduce me to a business owner that's struggling over it, wants to exit, etc. I'm going to show you somebody. Remember, Road Dog finishes the podcast every time with what? Progress equals happiness. Well, they're experiencing the exact opposite of that is a lack of progress or declining progress, right? Well, guess what? That is an example of a business somebody's trying to get out of, right? So again, build a business you could sell tomorrow, but don't want to, I think. And by the way, potentially earn passive recurring revenue from your business and not be involved in it day to day. Does that sound like an offer? Does that sound like a future, one that they'd like to join hands in and join you on? I would dare say. And I don't think there's a lot of people talking about that. What's everybody talking about? Exit, 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 exit. Well, and by the way, go do the math and go, I've had these guys on my phone many, many a times. And there's a very masculine individual in tears. And they just say, how did I never hear that advice before? Whereby they sold their company and now they look at it as something they regret. By the way, I might just qualify that, right? So example that I give, I got a room of 100 people. I say, who wants to sell me their business for $5 million? I'll let you guess how many hands go up, and it would rhyme with all of them. And then I said, okay, well, that sounds good, but guess what? Let's do some quick math. And I quickly show them they're going to have to pay some tax. They're going to have to pay some debt. They're going to have to pay the broker, etc. And basically what happens is 5 million becomes 2.75 by my rough numbers. And of course they will adjust on, different examples. Well, what happens, and by the way, I gave him a 5x multiple. Okay. And what means there is that he was making $1 million, like his earnings of $1 million, profits of $1 million, right? That's a 5x multiple. Bingo, bango, bongo. $5 million. Well, somebody that's making $1 million a year, do you need to meet them to have a look at their spending habits? They tend to rhyme with somebody who's making $1 million a year. When you exit, do those expenses magically go away? The answer is hard no. Notwithstanding, you just put $2.75 million in one day, presumably, into somebody's account. Well, what do you think happens? Right? The vultures start circling. That's what happens. Okay. And notwithstanding, let's assume that individual has not spent the last 10 years investing profitably. Well, what do you think happens to the 2.75? Do you think it goes up wildly and they make smart decisions like investing in the S&P 500 and just look in the other direction for 10 years the way Warren Buffett would guide you? Or do you think they take the hot sales, the hot stock tip from the Uber driver, the taxi driver, the guy sitting beside him on the airplane, right? So use your instincts there. It normally tends to end in not such a wonderful fashion. And that's why you want to build a business. You sell tomorrow, but don't want to. And then, by the way, you say, okay, well, I'd like to do that. They want to stick around. What do? You hired the number 2 guy from the number 1 competitor. Okay. Create some milestones and let them build equity, right? So they have ownership in the company. And now and the other company they were working for will assume that they weren't going to have that opportunity to become an equity partner. Those opportunities weren't going to be available. You're offering that. I think that's a future that they would like to be a part of. They join forces with you. And by the way, what's their undertaking? What's their job? You're going to pay them handsomely. Let's call that 200 grand a year. And then what's their job? Their job is to take $1 million of earnings and turn it into 1.5 and then 2 and then 2.5. So instead of selling the business, now they've hired, and all they're looking for is themselves 10 years ago. Somebody with some gumption, somebody with some know-how, somebody with some experience, somebody with some drive. And they put that person in charge of their company. Bingo, bango, bongo. Now they did have $1 million of earnings, and now they got $2 million of earnings. And yes, they're sharing it, but guess what? The cash flow didn't turn off. The profit didn't turn off. They didn't lose their baby. Anywho, so that would be an example of, the conversation roughly that I will have with somebody. And then, they end up with their head in their hands going, oh my gosh, because again, they're the person who exited for $5 million, turned into 2.75, invested in, some hot stocks, etc. And, crypto and everything else. And it went sideways. And then they took the money out, of course, right? Everybody says that they're going to, buy low and sell high. And what do? They buy high and sell low. And by the way, don't listen to what I'm saying. You go look at the stats and tell me what they say, but your instincts would be correct there. One of the other things I would do, like my advertising flywheel, I've talked about it a lot, right? But just simply put, why does somebody buy advertising? The entrepreneur. They're trying to get closer to freedom. Okay. So picture a clock out in front of you. And what are we going to do? We're going to put freedom at 12 o'clock. And then we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Why do they buy advertising? How do they feel? And they don't think about this, explicit, like they don't think about this consciously, right? It's more of a subconscious kind of ego thing where they want to drive themselves to a wildly profitable business and kind of, take a shortcut. We'll call advertising a shortcut. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be advertising. And I'm not in any way saying that advertising is not good. Truthfully, advertising to profit is a superpower of an entrepreneur. But the problem is, look at the stats, tell me what they say. And they very comfortably say that 80% of the money spent on advertising is lit on fire. Why? They don't have an operating system. They don't have an upsell, a downsell, a cross-sell, a proper upfront offer, etc. Okay. So anyway, so back to the example. So flywheel, you've got freedom. Why? They're trying to get leads. Why? They're trying to get hot prospects. Why? They're trying to get clients. Why? They're trying to get revenue. Why? They're trying to get profit. Why? They're trying to build a big business. Why? They want to become independently wealthy. Why? So they can achieve freedom. So they so freedom leads to get hot prospects, to get clients, to get revenue, to get cash, to build a big business, to become independently wealthy so that they can become free. Well, if they buy advertising for 20 grand and it gets them no return, what happens? They get further away from freedom. When somebody gets further away from freedom, when they're trying to get the freedom, remember, progress equals happiness. What happens? They get overwhelmed. They get over it. They start thinking everything's a scam. They get frustrated, etc. What happens? They take their eye off the prize and the business goes in the wrong direction. Anywho, so this, I don't know. Then there's a lot more. And again, I would encourage you, you got to make sure that you come up, you don't want to necessarily just use mine. You can certainly leverage those. What you really need to do is you need to have your own bomb so that you can qualify it and you can kind of speak to it like a story. Anyway, so that's an example. And my boy, shout out to Gary Mansky. And he was speaking to our group and he just said, wow, guys, you need to take note of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you homework. And what is that homework going to be? You could probably guess. You got to come up with your 3 bombs. How often are you going to use those bombs? You're going to sit with 10 entrepreneurs and 10 different conversations. How many times out of 10 will you drop the 3 bombs? Correct. Every single time. Well, you all over here, here's the ball rolling in the street. Here's what's going to go wrong. You're going to say it 10, 25, 50, 100 times. And what are you going to start thinking subconsciously? Everybody's already heard this stuff. Guess what they've never done? They've never heard this stuff, right? They're getting advice, if somebody tries to stop smoking, who do they hang out with? A smoker. And or somebody who's overweight gets somebody else who's overweight and starts going to the gym, right? Somebody who's not a good entrepreneur partners up with somebody who is not a good entrepreneur. And what do they try to do? Build a business. If I want to get in shape, I find somebody with a 6-pack who never misses the gym and I join forces with them. I want to stop smoking. I go partner up with somebody who would never let a cigarette touch their lips again, right? That's the person I want to join forces with. Anyway, so there you go. So you're going to drop your bomb. So your homework, if you choose to accept it, and I highly encourage you to, is to come up with your 3 bombs that you drop every single time. And the only adjustment you make is you get better at telling them and providing the story, you know what I mean, and kind of bringing them into it. Anywho, so there you go. Okay. Road dog. We deal with people / hear from people who are perpetually frustrated. There you go, Road Dog. Help guide this business owner, this business coach. Okay, so somebody's perpetually frustrated. What would I say? What would I do? First, I mean, there's a lot you could do here, right? But first, you should look for and identify tension. Okay, so they're frustrated. There's going to be tension that I can find, and frankly, I can find it easily, right? Like, what would I mean by that? What do you want most versus what you want, right? So you desire connection. Your desire for connection is in conflict with your desire for independence, right? So your desire for money is in conflict with your desire to have a chill life. Your desire to feel safe is in conflict with what? With your desire to really go for it, right? The crazy ones make all the money. I say that all the time. So the higher level question is, it's which one wins when the 2 conflict, right? And by the way, these same conflicts happen for your clients wildly. So I would encourage you to help them reverse engineer it and find them, right? And what do you got to do? You need to pick one or the other. And by the way, which one is that? It's the higher level one for you. Or what's going to happen? You're going to live in that frustration. You're going to stay in that frustration and just kind of call it reality, right? So I'll give you an example, literally from yesterday, right? So I like to go surfing every day. And yesterday, my buddy messaged me and he said, he big crew of guys together and we're all going out. And, he said, you need to go, right? Well, the problem is it was at the exact same time as I drive my daughter to school, right? And what do I never miss? I never miss driving my daughter to school, right? I love a perfect surfing day, with the, bunch of guys. but time with my daughter in the morning is literally precious. And it's probably the highlight of my day, by the way, which might be sad for some, but that's what I look at. Everything I do during the day, I just love it. Right. So, and by the way, yes, sometimes she's in a bad mood, but I help her through it. Or I'm just, kind of there for me, for her. Maybe she's worried about a test or something to that effect, right? Whatever the case may be. Um, I'm there. And then more often than not, we're having a great time. And what did I do? I had a conflict. I said sorry to my buddy. I can't go at 8:30. All right, I can go at 8. I couldn't go at the time that he said. They said, but I can go at 8:30 when I'm back. And what happened? I missed out. How I just knew which was more valuable to me, right? Like so, think of it as like a silent competition. Um, but when you are able to address it, or maybe no, when you're able to realize it, and then you're able to choose, let's call it, the values that you want, the values and the desires that you want, you're going to have little regret in that. Because I knew that if I went, I might, regret not driving my daughter to school, despite the fact that that's not the end of the world. And, my wife would absolutely more than happily drive her. And I might tell you this morning, so just literally this morning, you may or may not know, but I love Madonna. And we listened to Madonna songs from basically, I gave her my phone and we listened to Madonna songs pretty much like the entire way to school. Right. And then I asked her, I said, why do you like Madonna so much? I was kind of, surprised. She goes, because I'm your daughter. And I'm like, oh my God. She often says she looks like her mom and then she acts like me. So there you go. But, and again, why? Because like I spend, and I'm not, what I mean? There's going to be fathers out there that spend more time with their kids than I do, not pretending to be the world's greatest parent, despite the fact I take it very seriously. And I do feel comfortable. I am a very good father. But that said, you know what I mean? Like I spend an enormous amount of time with her. Anyway, so I had a conflict and I chose the one that it was the higher level value to me. That's what I'm trying to bring across, right? So for you, it's going to the networking function or chilling out, right? Which one are you going to choose? We'll go to the one that's more valuable to you. And on a different day, for different reasons, you might choose differently. But I think you use that, and that's going to help you with the tension. Actually, let me give you a framework. If you've ever read, ever heard of or read, what's it called? Tony Robbins' book, way back when. Awaken the Giant Within, right? So here's basically the frame for the book. And sadly, I've reverse engineered it. And also, by the way, this is Tony Robbins' flagship program. It's like 100 hours long. I think it's called Date with Destiny, DWD, Date with Destiny. It's not his 3-day one, it's his full week one. Anyways, Date with Destiny, I think. So what I want you to think, like this is going to be pulling your subconscious mind forward. And that's the one that secretly is running the entire show, much like, your identity does. And I've spoken about many times over the last semi-short period of time, right? Okay, so here's the framework. Number one, you got to isolate a positive emotional feeling, okay, that you desire, right? So peace, happiness, maybe it's conviction, charisma. I don't know, you're looking for a little bit of charisma. Maybe this will help you. Confidence for sure, right? But what I want you to do is choose one, and it's got to be one that you really desire, one that you really want, but you don't have it consistently, right? Okay, so the you're going to isolate it. Like answer this: what needs to happen for me to feel? Okay, this is like like kind of the next step. And let's assume you chose peace, right? So answer what needs to happen for me to feel peace, or whichever one that you choose, right? It might be happiness or whatever. Don't be, and as you do this, I don't want you to be hesitant and I don't want you to try and be right. Just start writing without stopping. That's part of the magic, right? So I must XYZ. My wife must XYZ. My friends must XYZ. My prospects must respond. My clients must do the homework, show up to the calls. My kids must behave when I ask them to, jump. They say how high, or my kids must get straight A's, right? So what needs to happen in order for you to experience peace, right? And now what I want you to do is I want you to let's go to another step, and I want you to number them and group them, right? So what number of things must happen for you to feel peace, right? And then once you make a list, and again, it should be semi-long, right? I would assume. Then I want you to group them into two groups. One group is things that you can control, and the other group is things that you can't control, right? So you take a positive emotion, let's call it peace. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, what must happen in order for you to feel peace, right? You're going to number them, you're going to group them, and you're grouping them into things you can control and things that you can't control. Okay. Hopefully fairly straightforward. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go to a negative emotion, right? So choose a negative emotion you feel regularly. Okay. Frustrated is the example here, right? And it might be angry, it might be defeated, whatever it's going to be. But here's my question. What has to happen for you to feel frustrated or that negative emotion, right? And the problem I think you're going to find, you'll likely discover to feel good, like a good emotion like peace is hard, and many things need to happen and happen simultaneously in order to feel it, right? And to feel negative, right? Like frustration, only one thing needs to happen and then it triggers you, right? Like kids disobey, the prospect doesn't respond, somebody ghosts you. And you know what I mean? Like basically, you kind of follow me, like translation. It's what I'm really trying to get at is it's hard for you to feel peace and then easy for you to feel frustrated, right? I probably don't need to tell you, but that's a bad combo. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to another step and we're going to reframe it, make it easy to feel good with very few conditions, right? Like make those conditions more ones that you can control and ones you can't control, right? So what needs to happen? What are the conditions that need to happen to feel peace? And create an environment where you feel frustrated, the negative emotion, right? So you're doing both. I don't think I've explained this very well, by the way, but you're going to reframe it, make it easy to feel good, and you're going to have very few conditions on that, right? And then you're going to make it hard for you to create an environment where you feel frustrated, right? Like the negative emotion. So let me give you an example. Let's say your old frame is, I feel frustrated when people don't reply to my messages. I feel frustrated when I get ghosted. And I would imagine if you're doing your work and you're sending out your messages and you're doing what you need to do in order to get coaching clients, I guarantee that's happening, right? Or I feel frustrated when I go to a networking event and don't walk out with an appointment or people interested. I feel frustrated when I need to wake up and go to work to earn money when my buddy's retired. I feel frustrated when my kids don't obey me. I feel frustrated when I experience traffic, right? Remember, you can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do, right? So the new frame is, look, I've said this many times over the last number of weeks, like I reach out to 25 people every day. And if I do that, I'm taking action and getting closer to my goal, right? The results will compound over time. And this makes me feel peace as long as I do my part, regardless of the daily outcome. Right? Could you see the difference there? The old frame was I feel frustrated when people don't reply to my messages. And then the new frame is totally within your control. I reach out to 25 people every day. And if I do that, I just feel like by taking those actions, by taking those steps, by sending those messages, I'm getting closer to my goal. And you're accepting of the fact that compounding happens for everybody. So the more messages you send out and the better you get at sending the messages and better you get at the replies, your results are going to compound, right? So you're just accepting of the fact that that's going to be a peaceful experience for you and other people are doing it and having success. So why the hell wouldn't it work for you? Right? Well, it's the same coach, same hours in the day, but a totally different outcome, right? One leads to peace which feels, I think, controllable. And one leads to that constant frustration, which I would imagine sucks, right? So you want to go to the one you can control versus the one that you can't control. And by the way, as I'm doing that, like when you go to a motivational retreat, yeah, you want to get pumped up and you want to enjoy it, right? But work out the foundational framework, let's call it, in order to be able to keep it and be able to maintain the momentum that you get there, right? So it's like, again, Tony Robbins, read the book, thought that's awesome. I did Date with Destiny. And guess what? I thought it was awesome. So what did I do? I reversed engineered the process so that in my own world, in my own time, and very importantly with my clients and with business coaches, I could kind of frame it up, right? Anyways, so hopefully that helps. I know what I might do. I might go off programming. And I had a mentor of mine. He asked me this. He goes, Carl, you've been business coaching for 21 years, which I have, by the way. What are some lessons that you've learned, and I'm going to call it, that you think would be powerful for the business coaches in your community? And I thought it was pretty cool. Just in that, I think it really got me to kind of, dig deep. And in fact, by the way, I made a list, and I might just visit that list, which is on my phone. Okay, so here's a few things that I thought, and this might provide some value for you, right? The first one I wrote is, like all things in moderation, including moderation. As an example, and by the way, that's a very popular quote out there. That's not mine or pretending it is. Like an example, I quit drinking for 10 months, right? You know what? I decided alcohol is a net positive in my life, right? So glad that I did it. It was a great experience, and, quitting alcohol for an extended period of time. And by the way, the only reason I picked up a beer is I went on a fishing trip with my best bud and his older brother. Like, we're like brothers, right? And you know what? I just didn't want to be the guy on the fishing trip not drinking. It just didn't. That's just not. I mean, I just decided I didn't want to do that, right? So anyways, but the bottom line, the results are in for me. And if you were to ask me why, look, loneliness is worse than smoking for your health. And so what I do is I try to keep it to a 2-drink minimum. But you know what? It's fun for me to hang out with my buds. And that's, very much, I got a bit of an extroverted personality, and I enjoy that. And quite frankly, I like having a couple beers on Friday after work. Do I like having 10 beers on Friday after work? No. But I like having a couple, maybe I'll stretch it to 3 or 4 on a given night and extend the night a little bit. But that's just that it's a net positive for my life. And why? Loneliness is, very bad for your health. The exact opposite of that is that surrounding yourselves with your kind of people, I think, is very, very powerful. And by the way, in my opinion, a couple drinks, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Others, guess what? They feel very differently. And what do? I support them 100%, right? These are my rules, my thoughts, my experiences, and that's what I'm going with, right? You got to find your people and enjoy them. Like, we actually do a happy hour once a month, which, by the way, just happened to be last night. And, it's all business coaches, and it's a lot of fun, and these are their people. So anyway, so that's like who you surround yourself with matters, right? So what do you got to do? You got to find your people. Like, I read something and actually said this last night on the happy hour, but it's like veterans. I can't remember quite how this was worded, but like, as veterans, we don't wear our hats to impress you. We wear our hats to find each other, right? So think of that with the Harley Davidson. Why does somebody drive a Harley? To find their people. Why does somebody drive a souped up Jeep? To find their people, right? Like in my community, high achieving business coaches and business consultants. And by the way, we've got accountants and business brokers and M&A folks and investment bankers and, high level VC types and retired folks, right? But what they do is they kind of find their people, and we hear that all the time, and we highly, highly encourage it. So I just say to you, go find your people. And maybe that's going to the gym, and that's going to church, and that's going to the library. It's doing your thing, but I would go and find your people. Anyways, so all things in moderation, including moderation, is kind of how I got off on that tangent. And like, okay, I think don't surround yourself with people with goals. By the way, I think you should do that, but don't be thinking about surrounding yourself with people with goals. Surround yourself with people that have already accomplished what you want to accomplish have already accomplished your goals, right? Get in groups where you're inferior. Okay, a little translation there, a little thought there. I don't think BNI is that room for you. And by the way, they're okay prospects, but I don't know if those are your quote unquote people. And maybe they are actually, right? But decide and act accordingly. Um, and by the way, I want to make sure it's okay. Like you go, but just don't make it like your people, right? Like your Harley drivers when you drive a Harley, or they're Jeep drivers when you drive a Jeep, right? Go there. A lot of people there are kind of hiding from the real work is the way that I would say that. And by the way, that might be a little bit harsh and that would be categorically incorrect, because I bet there's a lot of BNI groups out there that are really, really good. But what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't sit and create a dynamic where my people were people that were kind of hiding from the real work, right? So I'll leave that one with you. But the golf course has networking, and the yacht club has networking, and the oil and gas club has networking, and the very high level groups out there. So go about it with intentionality. Okay, my next note is have a few really good friends, right? And by the way, what is a good friend versus somebody who I would not classify as a good friend? How they react when you win will tell you probably what you need to know. I'm sure there are exceptions there, but at the end of the day, when you win, how do they react? Like I've had the same best friend since I was 8 years old. We're, very much like brothers. His mom, I called her Mama. She passed away a few years ago. May she rest in peace. Dear, dear Mama. But she literally they have 3 kids, and I'm literally written into the will as the 4th kid with 25%. So there you go. But a little bit put it in perspective as to the closeness. And when I say we're brothers well and truly. Of course, my buddy Stewie, same thing. We've been wicked buds since we were about 10 years old. Another buddy of mine, Boke, that just sent to me, just had his birthday the other day, which by the way is who, if you read my daily email, who Dangerous Dave is kind of created after. Because Boke is one crazy, like I always say, like, everybody's got that crazy buddy, but I will put my crazy buddy up against your crazy buddy any day of the week. The man is a full-blown lunatic, and he is so funny. Oh my gosh. Oh my heaven. But anyway, but you want to find, you know what I mean? You don't need to have lots and lots and lots of friends, in my opinion. What you really want to do is you want to have some really, really close, meaningful relationships. And so, by the way, that's not going to be anything new, but my question is, do you? Right? And if you don't, there's going to be some folks in your past that you can rehash and really create that bond. Or what you're going to do is go buy a Harley, buy a Jeep, go find your people, and them when you find them. Them. Like my daughter, she's 12 years old. She had a new girl come to her class, and these two are like, she literally defines it. She goes, her name's Adele, and she says Adele and I are literally the same person. Right? Like that's the way my daughter describes her. Right. So they, fast friends. And by the way, she spends an enormous amount of time at our place, and they spend an enormous amount of time together. But anyway, so those things come together pretty quick. So do you have them? And if you don't, I think you should go create your 3 magical friendships. And then you got to do your part. Like, what makes a magical friendship? Look, truthfully, it's work. It's time. You got to do it with intentionality, right? If you don't, don't get surprised when you don't have those bonds. And by the way, if you don't have those bonds, there's a reason why, is you haven't put in the work. And then you say, yeah, but they didn't put in the work. You know what? You put in the work. It's NLP 101. They will also put in the work, but you go first. Okay, next note. All magic is in compounding. And by the way, this isn't all, people hear compounding, they think of financial returns, which, and there's magic in that, but it's all areas of your life, right? You go to the gym, what's going to happen? The answer is nothing. Go to the gym every day for 12 months, and the opposite of nothing is going to happen a lot. But what happens, it kind of like compounding, it all kind of happens at once, right? The magic and the bad bit of compounding is you double a penny every day for 30 days. What happens? You end up with $5 million. You do it for 31 days, you end up with over $10 million. The problem is it's very unexciting until about day 25, right? So again, small gains, small gains, small gains, small gains, small gains until you get that big gain, right? Like the gap, you got entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur, your clients are entrepreneurs. The gap between successful and unsuccessful is what? And it's knowledge, right? Never stop learning, never stop growing. Warren Buffett will tell you, Charlie Munger will tell you, may he rest in peace. Everything compounds, especially your knowledge. At the end of the day, if you want to be a world-beating business coach, you want to be the seven-figure business coach, you want to be semi-retired for the rest of your life, you got to be really good at this. How do you get really good at business coaching? Knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Like, what are the 3 rules of real estate? Location, location, location. I think rules of business coaching, knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. I don't know. I've never said that before. I don't need to think about that one, but no doubt I'm close. If I'm not dead on, I'm damn close. But the bottom line is, there's magic in compounding. Live it, but understand that there's going to be very little gains for 25 days. And the trick is for you to keep going. Like if you improve 1%, every day for 365 days, you get like a 37x return. I don't care how bad you are at coaching, how bad you are at sales, how bad you are at anything. If I 37x your current level, you're going to be dangerous. All right. Like I got to tell you, like I've been lied to, stolen from, and cheated on. And truthfully, it's demoralizing on steroids. Liar, liar, pants on fire. You know how amazing it would be if liar's pants actually did catch on fire? I would say really awesome. But what am I trying to say here? If you never give up, you can't lose, right? So what do you got to do? You got to never give up. And my experience is, remember, you're going to die anyways. That can be a very liberating feeling, knowing that you're like the people, like business coaches who fail are guys who go month to month, quarter to quarter, day to day, week to week, and decide if they're going to keep going, right? If that's your attitude, that's your approach, I got to tell you, you're already failing, right? What you got to do is like my daily email. My dad asked me a long time ago, he said, how long are you going to do this daily email? My answer was, or when are you going to stop doing your daily email? My answer was never. Right? Never. And by the way, does that mean that I'm never going to stop? Not necessarily. But at the end of the day, my current frame, there's zero chance whenever you're listening to this. But on the next day, let's call it Monday, my email will show up and it will have a joke and it will have the framework and it will have the anywho. And hopefully we'll have, a reasonable amount of knowledge and, a bit of a bomb or some wisdom dropped. I like to think so. Anyways, maybe that might have sounded a little overconfident, but at the end of the day, I get lots of positive feedback. But I got to tell you, whether you love it or hate it, it's going to be showing up. I ain't going to stop. I don't care who abuses me, who tells me it's a dog's, it's bad. Not going to stop. Because remember why? You'll be remembered for what you refuse to give up on. Right. So here's my question. That sounds good. What do you refuse to give up on? Your clients, your business coaching career, creating a business coaching career where you're semi-retired for the rest of your life. I can tell you from somebody who's well and truly experienced it, and with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients who have also experienced it, that it's worth it, right? The end. Because why? You got to live like you're going to die tomorrow, right? Why? Nothing will bother you. That's the ultimate frame, being bothered by nothing. Right? Like when you lose your health, what do they say? A man with his health has 100 dreams. It might be 1,000. I don't know. But, a man with his health has 100 dreams, and the man without his health has how many? 1. Right? Think about that. If you're currently listening to me and you have your health, what do you got? And it would rhyme with everything. So live like that, right? Because the goal, I think the goal for you, the goal for me is peace. It's not happiness. Happiness is a little bit like cleansiness. It's like hygiene, like your armpits, that you can have a shower and what's going to happen? Your armpits are going to start to stink at some stage, right? So what do you got to do? You got to have another shower, another shower, another shower, another shower. You got to brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. It's not going to stop, right? So happiness falls under that, in my opinion, but peace can be something that, you can really, really hold on to. And I would encourage you to be thinking about having that as your higher level frame. Semi-retired for the rest of your life. That sounds like peace. That sounds amazing. That sounds like something you'd really get behind. Well, I would encourage you to decide that you're never going to give up on it, because that's what you'll ultimately be remembered for. And remember, don't do it for you. Don't do it for your bank account. Do it for the business owners that are struggling. You'll always do more for others than you do for yourself. So maybe take that approach, but the goal, I really peace. And by the way, peace, I think that's a very difficult thing to define. It's like excellence. Excellence it's almost impossible to define, but it's undeniable when you see it, right? So become peaceful. And you just think of the groundedness of a grandfather kind of falls into that. You go to the networking function, you want to be that individual that's kind of calm, cool, collected, kind of handling themselves. I think that's a good frame. Um, anyways, back to my notes. Okay, experiences over things. Um, I really encourage you to embody this one. You buy stuff and you end up with stuff, right? And I've owned all the cars, right? Start with an L and a P and an F, etc. Without doubt, my best moments were not in the things that I bought and the cars that I drove. They're in the experiences that I had. And I said, by the way, experiences are always better with other people, right? So experiences that I had on my own. Like I love surfing and I love going out there on my own. Seeing a dolphin, but it's always like what I talked about earlier, like my buddy messaged me and there's a bunch of guys going. Don't think that didn't make it significantly more compelling for me, because experiences with other people significantly greater. Just think of watching the Super Bowl. You watch the Super Bowl by yourself. It's one experience, which by the way, could be very exciting. Um, but you go to the stadium with 100,000 people and watch the Super Bowl, and it's just an experience on a whole nother level. Whole another level. Um, like I just like I think back, like I've played hockey at national championships, world championships. I played hockey in Czechoslovakia, Slovakia, USA, Italy, all corners of the USA and all corners of Canada. I played in Thailand. I played hockey in Thailand, on an ice rink that was on the 7th floor of a mall. That wasn't on my, that's not one that I thought I'd end up doing. But anyways, I did. It was pretty awesome, by the way. I played hockey in Australia. I've played hockey all over the world, right? Uh, Here's the thing though. I've had the option to go or not to go, each time that I did. And there's not a single one that I regret. But if I do have any regrets, it's the teams and the experiences when I didn't go. I said, nah, you know what? I'm going to stay home with the family or whatever it was, right? Translation, experiences over things. Say yes and just stack experiences. Like a big life hack, is a change of environment, right? Like don't be scared to move, yourself or even your entire family, right? Like I moved to Australia, I moved to Canada, I moved to multiple cities. I moved to a Caribbean island a number of years ago. No question in my mind. It can be very intimidating for somebody. By the way, I'm speaking to a specific individual that I spoke to. I know he's probably listening. And I gave him this advice that he very much pushed back on, but which by the way is totally fine. And it might not be the right move for him, might be. But one of the things I said, like going through a tough time, one of the most powerful ways to just shake yourself right out of it is to just change your environment, consider a move, right? It's a life hack on steroids. And by the way, that's in my opinion. I also like my brother-in-law as an example. He's lived in the same small, semi-tiny city for his entire life. And you know what? He's still got the same buds. He's still got the same bar that he goes to. He's still got like everything is just really, really straightforward to him. And you know what? He's got himself a great life and he really, really enjoys it. I don't know that he would disagree with this, but what he would do is just say, you know what? It's worked out for me. And this is what I enjoy. So again, so take all this maybe with a grain of salt is what I am saying, but I can tell you, and again, this goes far beyond my intelligence in that there's people much smarter than I that will tell you, a change of physical environment is a hack, um, on steroids. Like when you go on a holiday, you always dream bigger on a holiday, right? So when you meet an entrepreneur who hasn't had a holiday in 3 years and you've met them and I've met them and we've all met them, right? Well, that's not a good idea. That's nothing to be proud of in any way, shape, or form, right? Really what they're doing is limiting their growth in a very meaningful way. So there you go. That's I've got more, but I don't want to go on forever. But hopefully that helps. But those are some thoughts after a couple decades in the business coaching world and providing a little bit of direction. So there you go. That's all I got, folks. I hope that helps. If I were to choose one thing, I don't know what I would say. If I was going to choose one thing, I might say that, the conflict, right? Like you get a desire for connection, but it's in direct conflict with your desire to be independent, or, your desire for something that you would refer to as independence, and you might use a slightly different word. Or you get a desire for money, but it's in conflict with the desire to, the way that you define peace and freedom, and to kind of be able to chill when and if you want, right? So those things are in conflict. I think reverse engineering that for yourself and kind of work out where you've got those conflicts. And by the way, do that with your clients. I think that could be a very, very powerful exercise. Oh, speaking of exercise, very importantly, what I gave you homework at the very beginning. So you know what? So I'm going to say that I'm going to give you a dual one thing. I'm going to give you two things. So one is that I think reverse engineering, it's powerful, but what you really got to do, in the words of Gary Mansky, he said that this is, he described it as everything, right? And he just very passionately told everybody listening, look, you've got to follow this. And that's, you got to create your 3 bombs. And how often you're going to drop those bombs? The answer is every single time. So there you go. Come up with your bombs. Okay. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening, and we'll speak to you next week. God bless. Bye-bye.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.